2022 was a strong year for the Indian automobile industry. The Indian Motor Show is also set to make a return after a gap of 3 years. So how will 2023 be for the automobile industry in terms of growth, volumes, the electric mobility trends and the chip shortage? Joining us now to discuss all of this is Sunjay Kapoor, President of Automotive Component Manufacturers Association. We also have with us Vipin Sondhi, Chairman of CII's National Committee on Future Mobility and Battery Storage. Sunjay, let me begin by asking you about the Auto Expo this time around. Give us a sense of the kind of participation we're going to see.
So, we've got 800 companies participating. We've actually had to turn away companies because we've run out of space. That's the kind of excitement we're seeing. Our theme is very aptly put, Technovation, which is about technology and innovation. And you rightly said, the industry is transforming itself, it's disrupting itself, and we're going to see a lot of innovation, technology, a lot of future technologies, and everything that's happened over the last 3 years. We've been in a very disruptive environment, and over the last 3 years, a lot has changed. So there's a great opportunity for us all to be out there physically and look at what's happening in the component industry in terms of innovation and technology.
Right. Over the years, Mr. Sondhi, we have been seeing the participation in Auto Expos dip. What is the relevance of Auto Expos when it comes to boosting sales, showing your technology, opening up to more investments?
As Sanjay says, there's so much happening in terms of technological relevance and driven by either government regulation or business requirements. It's very important to be there. I think that is going to be key. And we've got to remember that a lot of the value add takes place at the component level. A major amount of value add takes place at the component level. I think it's a tremendous opportunity, and you'll see new fuels. You're going to see not only electric, but you'll see some potential for hydrogen being put in, LNG, CNG. So there's going to be a whole space. There'll be battery charging people. Now, a lot of people with applications will be interested. So it's a much larger space. It's evolving, it's expanding, and there will be individual businesses that will take decisions, but that's for that particular point in time.
Right. So you have told us earlier that we're not going to see Chinese participation at the Components Expo this time around. But on the whole, when it comes to the China Plus One strategy, Mr. Kapoor, give us a sense on how we are doing when it comes to the automobile industry.
Again, I'll go back to what Mr. Sondhi said in terms of...
The reason why I ask you, because it is being widely believed that Vietnam is giving India a run for its money.
Okay, good question. And as Mr. Sondhi said, this is the mobility industry. The competitive landscape is changing. So when you talk about investments and you talk about investment in technology and you talk about China Plus One, there's a whole host of businesses that are evolving or that the opportunities are evolving for in terms of supply. If you look at everything that's happening in terms of China Plus One and Europe Plus One, there's a lot of focus in India, a lot of push towards India. India is sitting in a great space in terms of manpower. We've got a good demographic. We've seen a lot of engineering talent in India, frugal engineering in India, and therefore we'll be attracting a lot of companies that will look at India as a sourcing hub. When I talk to OEMs today, a lot of OEMs that want to expand their business are looking at India very seriously because of the reason that we've got good talent, we've got the ability to invest in technology, and we've got a large market that's growing, and that's also really adding to the advantage of India.
So the China Plus One strategy, Mr. Sondhi, is not going to stay forever. How do we make sure that we leverage it? The budget is around the corner. Can the budget come up with certain measures which will boost India's attractiveness as an ecosystem?
So let me just mention 3 points. One is, I think government policy has been fairly robust, and I think industry is responding to that. Whether it was the PLI scheme on ACC or the general PLI scheme for investment, it's all been focused on future technology. FAME 1, FAME 2, etc. as well. So I think in a sense, you have conversations that are going on at all points in time with the government, the CII, ACMA, and other stakeholders as well. I think that needs to be sustained, but there is a policy infrastructure in position. From a budget standpoint, we've always said, and I won't get into specifics, the more we spend on infrastructure, which government spending has been going up every year, especially in the 600,000 villages. If 50% can be spent there, it means more income there, more employment there, more requirement for mobility. Whether it's trucks taking cement and steel, or buses carrying people, or passenger vehicles, or entry-level mobility solutions. Remember, there is a lot that we can take advantage of. The only one thing I'd say is ease of doing business is the focus, really, when we look at state governments especially, and it should be as much plug and play as possible.
Okay, ease of doing business. Maybe the top 3 recommendations on that front?
I think what people are looking is plug and play. So land availability, electricity, roads, etc., water. Those with the right incentive packages for that particular place, that will be good. Social infrastructure is something that people get concerned about. What about children's schooling? What about what about hospitalization, etc.? So this general social and physical infrastructure, which really will be the most important thing to fix for a plug-and-play solution.
All right. Any key asks from the budget as far as import duties go or any other measures?
So, you know, for us, it's really a standardization of GST. That's really what we're asking for. We're very thankful to the government for the PLI schemes, the FAME2, the PLI for ACC batteries. You know, we're looking at a large outlay in terms of what the government is willing to, incentivize companies that have applied for PLI and invest in future technology. So it's really, for us, it's really the GST standardization of GST.
Right. Mr. Sondhi, coming to you. Now, we have seen electric vehicle registration cross the 10 lakh mark in India. It's a 200% growth over a base of roughly 3.6 lakh vehicles. A small base, but growing in a robust manner and surely. What do we now need in order to take electric mobility to the next level?
Well, actually, we should really be expanding it more and more, and you're absolutely right. I think the points that have been concern to users, one has been range anxiety, and I think we are getting around it. The second has been the battery technology and the battery management system around that technology. And third is to take it now into tier 2 towns, etc., and get people to get a feel of what is going on. So it's essentially the ecosystem that has to be developed around the vehicle itself, which again then brings us to the mobility ecosystem. Local laws will have to comply. State governments are increasingly coming out with policies of their own, actually quite proactively. So I think it's only a matter of time. And the incentivization has also been provided. I think it's only a matter of time where this just keeps going forward. But it's extremely important, as Sanjay said, we get in the best technology and we get in aspirational design standards. We must aspire, and whatever is made in India should be exportable. It should be for the world.
I'd like to ask you about battery costs, because when it comes to higher EV sales, this is still a deterrent. And battery prices have gone up. Currently, they're around $160 per kilowatt hour. The price is quite high. How do you see the prices coming down in India? Yes, the ACC PLI scheme will begin its rollout from the 1st of April this year. How long before we can have enough manufacturing to bring down prices in India?
No, you're absolutely right. Parikshit, it's about investment and scale. At the end of the day, manufacturing and deepening our supply chain for these critical components, and which will answer your earlier question also on duties. We've got to deepen the supply chain, and that's the only way in which prices will come down. Normally, it takes 3 years from the time of investment, where any manufacturing enterprise reaches a first level of scale before the next investment takes place. But it's about deepening a local supply chain. And I think that's what the PLI scheme will help achieve.
Coming back to the semiconductor issue, this has been a niggling issue ever since COVID began. We're much better off right now, but what is the kind of demand for semiconductors that we're looking at currently?
So, you know, we're going to see an increased demand when it comes to semiconductors. When we went into the problem, we were a buyer where we were consuming 7% of what the semiconductor industry was, what their output was. The way we look at industry today and the way we look at disruptions today, I think this will probably go up to about 20%. We were also at the tail end of the technology, and therefore we suffered when we did because of the increase in semiconductors in electronics and in other products. This will continue because we will see semiconductors increase even in electronics. We'll see semiconductors increase in auto components as well as automotive, and more so in auto components, which was never as apparent as it
Could you give us a
today.
sense of the percentage increase, maybe?
I can't tell you what the percentage increase in that sense is, but if I look at the industry overall, I'm pretty pretty confident to say that it'll go from 7 to 20%, of what the buying is from the semiconductor. So if you look at semiconductor, the issue today, it's pretty much eased off. We don't have that big a problem with semiconductors. We've seen capacity emerge across the globe, and we will see more capacity. Of course, this is a time-consuming process, and it takes time for capacity to be put up. But if I look at what's happening today, I don't see a real problem in terms of supply chain constraints. Going forward, as semiconductors increase in vehicles, in the component industry, as well as in the electronics industry, I can't say, what the cycle will be like. But again, it'll possibly be cyclical, and the capacity will continue to increase. I think during the pandemic, there was a constraint because there wasn't much investment in capacity, in increased capacity. And the increase of gadgets was causing strain on the semiconductor industry.
Right. My final set of questions now, when it comes to private capex, are you seeing enough demand in India and globally? Because we are looking at a global recession, a slowdown in key export economies. Do you feel that there is enough demand in India and globally to put in additional capex?
Absolutely. The short answer is yes. Capex has a cycle in our industry. It's probably about 18 months. So by the time capex kicks in, it takes that long. Anything, and I said this earlier, anything that's extremely good or extremely bad doesn't last long. So whilst we may see a recession for a quarter or two in the United States, this will come back. We're probably at a population about 82 to 90 million passenger vehicles. This will sort of, increase. And again, it's cyclical. It goes up to 100 million, comes down, goes back up. So, and we've seen this in the past. India has seen a great growth in both passenger vehicles and commercial vehicles. And we will continue to see this kind of growth if things go as they are going today.
All right. My final question to you, Mr. Sondhi. How important is it to get the fuel right? Just yesterday, we have seen the launch of the National Green Hydrogen Mission with an outlay of 20,000 crores approximately. The contours, the schemes are yet to be seen. But yes, the framework is there. The outlay has been approved by the cabinet. How do we get the fuel mix right for the future?
Parikshit, it's a great question. And therefore, there's no one answer. And in a country like India, and remember, we will also be exporting to countries which are natural countries for us to export. Africa, for example, Middle East, for example, all of them, even Australia, doesn't have fuel norms. So when you look at the norms in which we will be operating, we've got to ensure both in India as well as where we aspire to be as component people, but as OEMs as well. It will depend on the fuel requirements in that nation or that continent. So therefore, may I say the following to you. IC engines will still continue for a considerable period of time, especially when you look at unlegislated countries, and partly as the phase in or phase out takes place of India as a whole. But within that, cities and intra-city movement will be the first, as we are seeing, to move towards electric vehicles. But for what? But for light commercial vehicles and for passenger-related vehicles. But when you look at intra-city, or you look at large distances logistics, then you're actually moving into LNG, CNG, which won't go away, but in the future, hydrogen as well. So therefore, it is not a day too soon before the hydrogen mission, which was announced and now allocation done, because we have to remember also that this will be for steel plants, for cement plants, and for large industry as well.
Right.
We can't have large trucks waiting with large batteries to be changed, and that's a huge amount of cost, and that's a huge amount of weight as well. It'll probably be hydrogen driven. So horses for courses, we're going to have a variety of fuels, and remember ethanol as well, to ensure that we support part of the farming community.
All right. So that was the Auto Outlook with Sunjay Kapoor of Sona Comstar, President ACMA, and Vipin Sondhi, Chairman of CII's National Committee on Future Mobility and Battery Storage. We're going to take a short break, but don't go anywhere. The Finance Ministry appointed Committee on Private Equity and Venture Capital Investments has submitted its report to the government. A special conversation with Gopal Srinivasan of TPS Capital Funds and Siddharth Pai of 314 Capital.